Georgia. So there's
It's
something
nice.
I love, like any southern coastal town.
Oh
You
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
know?
dude. It's the nice kind of racism here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's racist, but it's so pretty.
Yeah, right. Racist, but with manners.
Yeah. At least they're nice about the racism here.
Yeah.
We are live to YouTube now, so hopefully everybody start filing in here in a bit. But yeah, how this works is you're probably not going to hear the intro music, which because it doesn't work well.
You know, hear the intro music. It's very bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have really bad intro music, but it's great at the same time. It's awesomely bad. But you won't hear that. It'll go silent here for a few seconds, and then we'll come in. We'll introduce you, and we'll just roll from there. How does that sound?
Cool. Sounds good to me.
All right, Jacob, you ready for this? Or with your professional podcasting setup outside your brother's car?
I don't know.
It's like we should just start like running numbers on where you're going to be podcasting from each week. It's like we never know.
Right now, I look like I'm podcasting from a campfire ghost story.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. You know what that music means? It means I played the wrong intro music. And here we are at the OpenMicersPodcast. My name is Jason Robbins.
I'm Jacob Craig, and we're giving you guys a throwback to the old days.
Yeah.
My video and sound quality is shit, and Jason's playing the wrong music.
Yeah, we're just batting 1,000 here tonight. We're looking great in front of Mr. Dave Stone here tonight. It's awesome.
That is who our guest is, isn't it, Jason?
Yeah, it is.
He is the man that you know from the fantastic YouTube special Pack a Lunch. You know him from co-hosting the Boogie Monster podcast with Kyle Kinane. You know him from Last Comic Standing. You know him from the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival. Dude, you know the guy from everywhere. It's the one and only Dave Stone. How you doing, man?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Now that you're here.
Right on, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're the highlight of both of our nights right now, Dave Stone. I just want you to know that.
Well, right on, man. Whatever I can do to help, you know?
Dude, I just want to say, like, I don't know what it is about your comedy, and your comedy is very storyteller type comedy, and I feel like we've lived a very similar life, especially with the way you grew up in the South, and you.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, and you some of the interesting jobs you've had in the past. I mean, you've been a police officer, all that weird stuff. Like I was an EMT, and some of the stuff you talk about in your comedy hits me in a place that it's just. I can see the people that you're talking about because I'm surrounded by these kind of people my entire life. So if you want to know what it's like to grow up in the South, just go listen to Mr. Stone's comedy albums, which are available on Spotify. You can go to your website is also dumbdavestone.com. Go visit the website and listen to the albums. If you haven't heard them, they're top tier, man. I just had to throw that out there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. Talking about like the Southern background, like sometimes as a comic, I feel like maybe I talk about that stuff too much, but if you can identify, like growing up in the South, you're just so inundated with just nonstop stupidity that like when I started stand-up, I just felt like I had this endless well of potential material to pull from. And like, every time I start to write a new hour, inevitably there's going to be bits and pieces of it rooted in, my upbringing in the South and just the absurd nature of the characters that I grew up with and lived around. And it's just, I don't know if people from other backgrounds or other cultures or part of the country or even the world can appreciate the nuance of just some of the just dipshittery that permeates the South.
But what do you think that?
It's so funny.
What do you think that is? Because I always, from the time I was a little kid, I was just different from everyone else around me, and it's like I could see the stupidity, but nobody else. I felt like nobody else could see it but me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I grew up to be just a cynical fuck of an adult. What is that? What makes us different from the everybody else around here?
Man, that's a great question. And I don't know how to answer it without sounding like, an elitist or a prick, but like, I don't know. I grew up in all that and I had that in my family. Fortunately, my parents were fairly common sense and level headed, even though there's still aspects of the bad parts of Southern culture that I couldn't avoid, even in my immediate family. But I don't know. I think it's just being blessed at some point with a little bit of self awareness of like, okay, like, and I still have, I try to extract the good parts. Like, there's so much about Southern culture I do love. I definitely don't want to come off as I'm just completely bashing the
Oh yeah,
South and
yeah.
culture because there's so much of it that is wonderful. It's beautiful. The food, the musical heritage and the manners, the overall default of your average Southerner's personality is pretty good on just your average, but it's just that smaller percentage of just whether it be just racist or closed-minded or just what I talk a lot about, just mean and stupid. Like, I don't know. Like I was fortunate enough at a certain age to be self-aware enough to know, okay, I like fried chicken and I like country music, but I don't necessarily have to fall in line with every single stupid aspect
That's
of this way of thinking.
that's
You
gonna be
know,
Jacob's first album, Mean and Stupid.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say fried chicken.
Both. Fried chicken,
I don't
mean and
know.
stupid.
I don't know if anyone down here is really racist or if they're just hot.
Yeah,
They might just be hot, dude.
yeah, yeah,
That makes them mad.
yeah. The heat
So hot.
rises. It's hard to be tolerant of anything.
Exactly, dude. I hate white people when I'm hot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm racist about myself.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's what I had added to the conversation. Dave, you mentioned growing up down here in the South. When you started comedy, did you start here in the South, or did you move away before you had started?
Well, I started in Atlanta. Yeah. So at the time, I was living about an hour north of Atlanta.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd go down after work or whatever. I didn't even realize it when I started, but there was and still is a really great scene in Atlanta. It wasn't as big when I started as maybe it was when I left or even now. But yeah, I definitely started in Atlanta. Late 2006 was when I
Okay.
started going to. I don't know if your viewers or listeners know, anything about the Atlanta scene. My second show ever was at Star Bar, which is still going, longest running show in the South. And it was just kind of the hub my whole time. I spent my first 5 years in Atlanta doing comedy before I moved to LA. But it was like boot camp. It was the hub every Monday night. Just, such a good showcase show, a long showcase show, probably usually on average 15 comics doing 5 minutes apiece. So, whatever that math adds up to. But yeah, it was the place to be, and it was a great place to start. And just, yeah, it felt like comedy boot camp.
So when did that lead to? Did that lead to you like featuring for people? Like what was the jumping off point from starting in Atlanta?
Yeah, that's a great question. For whatever reason, I was able to kind of, I'm not saying I wasn't good when I started, but I was able to generate material pretty quickly simply because of the volume of shows I was doing. Once I started, I didn't really tiptoe into it. Like I didn't start doing open mics thinking I would be a professional comedian one day. But I knew after that second or third show when I really got the bug of like, okay, I have to do this. I'm going to do it. It wasn't necessarily I want to make a career out of it. It was just this is fun. I think I might have a little bit of talent for it. Let's see if I can get good at it. So I was constantly writing, constantly going up. I mean, I was, when I started, and even by the time I left, on average, probably 10 sets a week, more than one a night. Maybe when I left, it was up to 12 or 13 sets a week, but it was just a given that, and I was fortunate in the sense that I didn't have a family, I didn't have kids. So I was able to just go out every night and just hit as many shows as I could. But to answer your question, I'm rambling. I was able to generate material fairly quickly. So I started featuring all around the Southeast probably about a year and a half in. About a year and a half, I had what I thought was a solid 25, 30, and I got hooked up with Comedy Zone, who I've talked a lot of shit about because I haven't worked for them in years, and I don't know what they're doing now. But they did a lot of things that I didn't understand or didn't agree with. But I will give them credit in that for someone with no experience, it was a great place to an opportunity to go and feature on the road. I drive to Charlotte one weekend, next weekend I drive to Knoxville. I mean, that was the great thing about the South, just the geography of it, the proximity, how many decent little cities and thus decent little comedy scenes are within a 6 or 8 hour radius of where I was in Atlanta.
Atlanta's a good good starting point for that kind of thing too, because there's so much stuff that's close by there.
Yeah,
you know, even down here, like the closest thing to us is there's Mobile, and there's New Orleans and Lafayette, and then if we want to go any further, we got to go up to Atlanta or up to Memphis or out to Austin, and those are at least good 7, 8, 9 hour drives from where we're at.
Yeah, we had a ton of 3 or 4 hour drives. It was 2 hours to Birmingham, it was 2 hours to Chattanooga, 3 hours to Nashville, 4 hours to Knoxville, and Charlotte and Greenville and Columbia had stuff going on. So yeah, there was even going south, Macon, Savannah, Georgia. But yeah, there were so many places that had comedy going on, that 3 or 4 hour drive. So it was really a great place to start in Atlanta. And I always preach this too. I was lucky that I kind of really tried to pursue both sides of it, meaning I always try to tell younger comics, like, at some point, if you want to work the road, if you want to become a professional comedian, whatever that means, just meaning go out and get paid to do it, whether you're a feature actor or headliner, then you need to go and work the road at the feature level. But also you need to be entrenched in a good scene. So I was lucky that like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I was in the scene of Atlanta, and the scene was important because it kept your sensibilities honest. Like it kept originality there. If I go up to Starborough on Monday night and do some old tired hack bullshit, my buddies are going to let me know. So there was always a standard of like originality that you had to meet being in a good scene. But then the road gave you the chops. The road taught me how to go out and do 30-minute feature set, taught me how to eventually go out and do 45, 50. And you need both. And I can always tell when a comic only has one. Meaning out here in LA, there's a lot of talented, funny, young alt comics that, they got that back of the room sensibility because they're in a good scene, but they've never worked the road. So even if they have the material, they don't know how to go out and do 30 in front of a paying audience and just crush, and vice versa. I used to work with a bunch of old road dogs that had the chops, that knew how to go out and headline, but they can't go do some cool record store or coffee shop. I mean, they can, but if they go up and do some of their kind of tired road material, it's going to bomb in like a cool scene. So I always stressed and acknowledged the importance of having a toe in each water, and I felt like it really helped me.
Yeah. So at what point did you kind of look at, I guess you look at your finances or something, and you're like, hey, I think I'm actually starting to make a career out of this. At about what point was that? What was that like to finally realize that?
Well, I kind of found a loophole. And what I mean is, I don't know if you know this fact, but I lived in a van. When I moved to Los Angeles in 2012, I had tried to move a few other times, like, 2010, 2011. I had wanted to move, and like I said, at that point, I was a full-time feature act. I was able to kind of quit my weird little jobs that I was doing, little transitional jobs, and I was just a road feature. I'd go out. I probably worked on average probably 45 weekends a year, but that's a lot of work, and it was good training, and it gave me those reps. But I don't know what they're making now, but I would drive 8, 9, 10 hours to make $250 for a weekend, and so I wasn't able, even though I was a full-time comic, I was a feature act, and I just wasn't able to save up enough money to move to LA and deal with that increase, cost of living, and the rent out here was insane. So I decided to buy a van and just live in the van and make it like my road vehicle, but also my home. So point being, to answer your question, like, you know, I kind of went through the back door in terms of like, I don't know if I'm making enough money yet to consider myself a professional comedian. So I wanted to make my nut as small as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get rid of let's just trim all the financial fat, the financial responsibilities, even rent. So that's why I decided to live in the van, and that enabled me to be out in LA and kind of pursue that side of it, but also let me work the road and not worrying about have to paying rent every month and all the other expenses that come with that. So if you're not making a lot of money, you just got to reduce your expenses as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And I paid the van off. It was just bought a used van, built it up myself, the inside. So there was a time when I was living in the van where like my monthly nut was like 200, $300, in terms of just bills.
Mm-hmm.
That's not counting food and stuff, but like, car insurance, cell phone, gym membership, that was about it. I didn't have any. I got rid of all my credit card debt. So that was just my logic of like, well, I know I'm not going to be making a lot of money, but if I want to do this full time, let me figure out how to survive on what I am making.
Yeah,
Right.
you got any scary stories for us there, Jacob?
Buddy, I think every open mic story we have is a horror story, isn't it?
Probably.
So, how long after you move into LA did you get the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson? And did that help with you like becoming a more, making more money as a full-time comic?
Let's see. I moved to LA in March of 12, and I think I did Ferguson like October of 13. It's about a year and a half after I got here. And I don't know, it's hard to say, like, as far as the effectiveness of doing a late night set. Like, it definitely, it looks good on the poster at the comedy club. If nothing else, it validates you a little bit to somebody who has no point of reference. They're like, oh, well, we've never heard of this guy, but it says he's been on Last Comic Standing, he's been on the Late Late Show. So it validates you in that regard to potential audience, and it validates you a little bit in terms of like bookers and club owners.
Yeah.
That's a good feeling. Pardon me, I got a frog in my throat. That is a good feeling without being passive aggressive or arrogant about it. Like when you reach out to a club and cold call them or whatever, hey, I'm a headliner, I'd like to work your club, and then they ask to send you a clip. Hey, you send me a clip? Absolutely, I'll send you a clip. And if you have a late night set to send them, that's just a little like, see, okay, I'm not a total schmuck who just fell out of a tree and found your club in a phone book. I'm somewhat legit in that regard. To clarify, just because some schmuck did a 5-minute late night set also doesn't mean he's going to be a good headliner at a club. I'm just saying it just validates you a little bit. It gives people in the industry who may not know you, at least gives them a point of reference. But as far as if that translated to more work or more money, I don't think that set per se really did much in that regard. It may have helped me get booked a little more, but I didn't really notice, like, because the funny thing about that too, a buddy of mine pointed this out, that I was living in the van when I did my first late night set on Ferguson, and he just made the observation that I might be the only comic in America who went and did a national late night set, and then went and slept in their car, afterwards. And even furthermore, like I used to park in like neighborhoods, like residential neighborhoods, and he proposed the hypothetical that I'm sleeping, I would park in front of, try to park in front of like nicer neighborhoods and nicer buildings just so it was a little safer. But not that that has anything to do with it. But the point of my van could be parked in front of an apartment, and then you pull back and we can see through the guy's window, and he's watching me at 11:30 at night on late night with Ferguson, having no idea that I'm the guy sleeping in the van in front of his apartment building. So that's kind of it's kind of a weird juxtaposition.
As far as the actual experience of doing Craig Ferguson, I mean, how was that for you? Because we hear a lot about, doing late night on Conan is amazing because he's a legit comic, a respected writer. I feel like Craig Ferguson's kind of the same way, where, he's also just such a legit comic, like and a respected late night host that it's kind of different doing it for him than maybe some of the other late night hosts.
Absolutely. And I know what you're saying without saying it, but yeah,
Right.
there's some late night hosts where I'm like, when have you ever done stand up? And you could say that about Conan. I'm not saying you just got to be a stand up, but I mean, Conan's great and he did his own thing, but there's a few late night hosts out there that I don't know, like, how'd you get this gig? That kind of vibe. But yeah, Ferguson, not one of those guys. Ferguson definitely, I respected him. I was a fan of his show for years before I even got on there. But it was fun. I didn't have anything to compare it to because that was my first time doing it. But yeah, I mean, he was very cordial and very encouraging. A quick little meeting before the show, introduced himself, and yeah, the bookers and all those people, they were cool as far as like I didn't really have to edit. I mean, there was a couple of things I had to edit a couple little things. I'd had the word, and I don't want this to come off as homophobic because that was my point because it's a made up word, but I couldn't use the word gayfer, and I was making fun of me. I was like talking about how I'm from the South, but I don't deer hunt in the South. That makes me a big old gayfer. I just always thought gayfer was a funny gayfer. But it's not like an actual slur, like the real spiky ones that
that's the name of a retail store when I was a kid.
I always thought gayfer. It was gayfer, and yeah, they wouldn't let me say gayfer, so I had to change that to like sissy boy or something. But yeah, I think that's the only thing I had to like change as far as the standards and practices or whatever. But yeah, to answer your question, it was fun. It was great. I hung out with some of the other guests on the show. I never know how to pronounce his name. Ken Yong.
Dr. Ken Yong.
Yeah, Ken Jong. Yeah, I never know. I got to hang out with him in the green room. So nice. And I think Kristen Ritter. Is it Ritter?
Yeah.
Dark-Haired Girls and a bunch of stuff. Yeah, those were the two guests. So that was kind of cool, just hanging backstage. Cool. And they both were like, oh, so you're going to do comedy. Oh, I couldn't do that. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'd much rather just sit on the couch and talk about my new sitcom, but I actually got to do a 5-minute set. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was, and it was like, I'm not going to pretend that like my whole dream was to get on Ferguson, but it was, it was just self-validation of like, okay, if nothing happens beyond this, at least I did that, and that's the cool thing I can tell my grandkids I'm not going to have about. So yeah, it was a good experience.
But you're at a level of comedy now where was there any kind of single incident or was it more of a gradual thing to where you kind of realize like, holy shit, I'm on a whole different level right now?
I don't know that I am on a different level. I mean, it's so hard. I'm so uncomfortable with that part of it. I don't know if you're referring to like success or notoriety or whatever, but like, no, I just feel like it's been a slow burn, that I always tried to approach it I grew up, I was never a musician, but I used to tour manage bands. And I was always a big music guy, go to shows. And I always tried to take it from like the old touring band perspective. One of the bands I worked with one time kind of explained it to me in such a simple term. They're like, look, all we're trying to do is we're going to go to Charlotte tomorrow and there's going to be 20 people there. And we're going to put on the best fucking show they've ever seen. And then when we go back next year, there's going to be 40 people there. And when we go back the next year, there's going to be 80 people there. When we go back the next year, there's going to be 110 people. And that's the approach that I've taken. I mean, I've been touring now for 15 years, and there's certain cities in the South that, like, I've probably done 12 or 13 times as far as, like, a headlining, coming back once a year type of thing. And so, yeah, to me, because I never had like a big break or anything, I don't, I was never on a sitcom or anything like that. But I think probably doing the podcast with Kanane, that definitely helped as far as getting me out of the complete darkness of total anonymity. Because before that, like I said before, even with doing Ferguson or Last Comic Standing or some of the other fun things I've got to do, it didn't necessarily translate to like, fame's the wrong word, but notoriety as far as like, I don't think anybody's ever come up to me and talked about seeing me on Ferguson I mean, there's some people have seen the Last Comic Standing thing, but point being, rather than just getting a cool TV credit, Like I think just getting into that podcast world and being able to do it with someone who is so respected and established like Kyle. I mean, I used to joke about it all the time. Like I've, totally aware that, some people could say, oh, he's riding Kanane's coattails. But my defense in that is he asked me to do the podcast. It was his idea. What am I going? And he was already one of my best friends. So of course I'm going to say yes and do that with Kyle. And all the people that were fans of him who had no idea who I was, once we started doing the show and those people would listen to the show, they got to know me and at some point maybe took a chance and saw my live show. And so, yeah, that probably is the main thing as far as just getting more people out to my shows where, no matter how good I thought I was back in the day, there were definitely times where I'd pull into town and, oh, we got 4 people here tonight at the Comedy Zone to see you, Dave. And it's like, oh, all right. So now it feels good. Not that I'm blowing up or selling a ton of tickets, but I haven't had to cancel a show in a long time, so that feels good.
Well, that's what people say about this show, too. Jacob just riding my coattails here,
Oh, bullshit, dude. Hey, let's come over the last 100 episodes and come up with the last funny thing you've said, Jason. Jason Robbins.
I want to get in the middle of a squabble here.
Sorry you have to see our marital dispute play out on YouTube Live right now, fellas.
Take it back.
But that raises a funny question as well, because it seems like you did late night with Craig Ferguson in a time where late night shows were more special and maybe meant more. But at the same time, you see comics now who their only credit is late night with Jimmy Fallon, but they're out there, headlining, selling tons of tickets, becoming a full-time comic. I mean, I've worked with people. We've had people on this podcast where overnight they did Jimmy Fallon and then their whole calendar is filled up.
Yeah. I don't know what the rhyme or reason for that is, because it does seem weird that would be an effective thing in this day and age.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously back in the day, the 70s and 80s, we all know when there was 3 television options, if you got on, Carson or one of the others, like a lot of people saw you. And of course that would translate to maybe an instant career. But and I know some of the people you're probably talking about, and good for them. But yeah, I don't know how that happens. But I'd much rather see that happen than people getting booked, from being a fucking TikTok star, YouTube star. That's the kind of shit. Don't get me started on that. Like,
yeah,
because I'll go on a rant. I totally get clubs need to make money, and this fucking idiot who has 10 million followers is going to sell a lot of tickets. I always want to do an exit poll after the show, though. Like, oh, by the way, honestly, how was the show? The guy who's not really a stand-up, doing stand-up. How was the show? And I know you like him because he's a TikTok, but objectively, how was the show? And if we're being honest,
I mean, honestly, I would like to go see one of those shows. What's that guy's name that's selling expensive ass tickets now? Matt Root. What was it? Matt
Rife. Matt Rife.
Matt Rife.
He's more legit.
I would honestly like to see it
just
out of sheer curiosity, like some of these TikTok stars, just be in the back of a room watching and see how it goes.
Which Matt Rife isn't a good example of that, but I mean, I've seen people, like I did a club a weekend before. The next headliner was just a guy whose one credit, if you can call it that, was TikTok. And he just has like, oh, I have a couple million views on TikTok, and he's like some fucking guitar comic.
Yeah. Sign me up.
Yeah, right. It's like when he runs out of a punchline, he's just going to play a fucking song. Like, it's just the whole thing's a cop-out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's discouraging if you think about it too much, but,
Dude, we just had this guy in Biloxi who he's one of those truck comics you always see, where he does YouTube videos from his truck.
Okay, yeah. Telling some truths, laying it down.
Yeah, dude, talking about the self-checkout machines at Walmart and how he's not going to fucking use them. They got to pay me to use that self-checkout machine, boy.
I don't work at Kroger. Do it. Yeah, just really fresh, original premises. I love those guys.
What kills me about that is that I know he sold out all of his tickets, and that I know that he fucking crushed in that room. That fucking kills me. I know he crushed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like, contradicting my point about how it was a show. I'm sure, if you're there to see a TikTok star, you probably fucking loved it no matter what he did. So
Yeah, right. It was great, dude. He owned the libs the whole show.
Yeah, he sure did. Now, I want to get into that because my cousin's libtarded. Okay, so that's a touchy subject for me. Stupid one.
I had another point, but I don't remember it now. Jason, ask a question, would you?
So, well, I like to ask people about the late night stuff now. Like, do you feel like late night shows are relevant that much anymore? Because, like you said back in the day, if you got on Carson, like that was a huge deal. If you got on Letterman, that was a huge deal. I kind of like some of the late night stuff these days, but it's not near the must watch late night thing that it used to be.
Oh, absolutely not. Like most of it, if you think, regardless of, and I'm not like picking on the host, but just the nature of the format, anything that's going to be on a network on a network channel that has that broad of an audience and is also limited via the FCC, where they have to, the content is limited and regulated. Like it's nothing that big is going to be that great. Like I don't know who sits down and watches a whole episode of Seth Meyers every night.
Yeah.
Like when you have so many other options, both in the cable television realm and also streaming. And like, I just don't know who those shows are for anymore. Like, who's sitting down and watching Jimmy Fallon for 90 minutes? I sure as fuck ain't.
Because back in the day, Carson used to have people on just because he liked them, not that they were pushing a movie or anything like that. Like that kind of stuff just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and plus, let's be honest, like, I want to sit and watch an A-list celebrity have a conversation. Like, I don't know, there's such surface value. Like, none of those people are interesting or funny. It's like, all right, here's this fucking A-lister with a new movie, and let's watch Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon fucking be cutesy in an interview with him. Like, who gives a shit? Like, that's just such a low form of entertainment value, in my opinion. But
that being said, if NBC came to you and like, hey, we want to do a new late night show, do you want to host? Would you say yes?
Probably not. No, I know that sounds insane, but I don't give a fuck about trying to be that guy. Like, nah. I mean, now, could I do something on HBO or Netflix where I have more freedom, and then maybe I can pick my staff and do like something really original and funny? Yeah, that'd be great. But to just go up and go through the motions and be the next Jay Leno, who gives a fuck about that? Ugh, that's no thanks. And it just seems like they're doing that shit 5 days a week. Even though I'm bashing them, I know it's not easy. I used to work in radio. I did a morning show on radio 5 days a week. I had to come up with shit to talk about. So I realize why it's not all gold, but like also who's making you do 5 shows a week? Idiots. Why don't y'all just do one really good show a week?
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. So, well, but yeah, the whole late night thing. I mean, I watched Conan, when I was a teenager, and I appreciated a lot of what he did. And seriously, I watched Ferguson, not just saying that because I did it, but I watched some of him, but I wasn't like every night out of the way. I got to watch this shit, but I get, in previous generation, I know a lot of people did do that for Letterman and Carson, and I know there was a lot of Conan.
I was a huge Letterman fan growing up because you could go on and watch Letterman and you're gonna see something different. Like back in the '80s, you would see stuff like Penn and Teller before they were famous. On David Letterman pretty regularly. Like he would have people like that on. And, you would see, you have really famous clips of Letterman, like when Jerry Lawler, hit, Andy Kaufman, like just stuff like that. You don't see that kind of stuff anymore. You will never see that kind of late night anymore.
Yeah, and I think it's across the board, like it's going back to the network thing, any of their shows. None of the shows on any night or any time slot are holy shit, I gotta see that. Because it's just so watered down and safe, and not to get in the whole industry side of it, but executives out here, all they're interested in is keeping their job. They're not interested in trying something new and taking a chance or maybe being an innovator. It's just like, because they all know they're fucking frauds. So they're like, let me just do enough to keep my job. Let's play it safe. Let's just here's another boring CBS multicam. It's just, the nature of the business does not reward originality.
And that's the thing. Oh, go ahead, Jacob. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me talk, Jason. For once, can I ask a fucking question, dude?
Go
please?
For it.
You do raise a good point in that I don't think I can get through the first 10 minutes of any current late night show, because like back in the day, you watch Craig Ferguson's monologue, it's fantastic. You watch Conan's monologue, it's fantastic, and these are respected people. But it's almost like the writers now. It's like, okay, we're doing our 5 Trump jokes and our Biden jokes, and we've got to do a carpool karaoke sketch. And it's like, I mean, I can't watch just 10 minutes of a non-comic doing comedy, dude.
Bingo.
Mm.
And
that's what it all boils down to.
Back in the day, Jeselnik mentioned that he was in the writer's room for Jimmy Fallon on his first show, and he got fired after like a week because he was giving him like Anthony Jeselnik type stuff, and Fallon was like, "We can't have that here," and he fired him.
What do you think I did? Yeah, who hired me? What do you think I was going to bring to the table?
Yeah, exactly, dude. But it's like they're firing like really good comics out of their writer's room to get whoever's writing for them now that just gives them all 5 late night shows just the same material.
Yeah, it's rough.
And that's what I was going to say is like you could take any of the late night hosts now and just interchange them, and it's the exact same show.
Yeah, and just even the format of the monologue, like, all right, here's 11 jokes about the news, just fucking Mad Lib style. It's just empty calories to me. It's just sugar water. There's nothing there.
I need to hear what Craig Ferguson thinks about that fucking submarine, dude.
Yeah,
we're missing out on that.
Yeah, that's somebody's perspective who you would want, who you would desire, not just Jimmy Fallon fucking giggling through another interview. Like, it's just so boring to me.
Do you think it'll ever change? Do you think we'll ever get back to a point where creativity trumps just cookie cutter bullshit?
I do. I think just given how I think that with YouTube and podcast and just DIY, I think eventually, I don't know, maybe that's wishful thinking. You also got to know your audience. I'm thinking when I say those things, I'm thinking about the people that I know and hang out with, comedians that, do have an original sense of humor and crave originality. But, I don't know I don't have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in middle America in terms of what they want to watch or listen to. So I don't know. But I think regardless of the audience, I think with the rise of DIY stuff and YouTube and podcasts and everything in between, I think, and we're already seeing that, I think it's making the mainstream shit just more and more irrelevant,
Yeah.
Or less relevant might be a better way to say that.
Because I feel like when I was a kid, now, I was learning about comedy. I mean, my dad gave me my first comedy album. It was AM/FM by George Carlin. That was my first comedy record. And then, collecting records. But being that comedy nerd kid, late night was where I went to, for comedy. Like, because, that's where it was. That's where it lived.
Yeah, it's the only place it was other than, maybe when Comedy Central came around or an HBO special,
And now it's kind of like, it's where do you go? I mean, YouTube, obviously, but even then, it's kind of like you gotta find it. It's kind of like not there in your face like it used to be,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we stress this on my podcast I do with my wife, the Stonebergs. Like most every episode at the end, we just have a little segment called Word of Mouth. Like, here's a band that maybe y'all should listen to. Here's a comic that's got a new special. Here's a TV show, and that's kind of how, and that might be naive, wishful thinking, but that's kind of what I've based my whole career on, is just hoping that the people who came to the show and really dug it, not the people that just thought, of course there's going to be certain people like, oh, he's fine. But I hope that I have a small percentage of the people leave my shows going, this guy fucking rules. And I'm banking on them telling their friends about it. my buddy at work likes comedy. You got to check out Dave Stone or whatever, and like, because that's also all I'm shooting for. Of course, I'd love to sell out hockey arenas and minor league baseball stadiums. Who wouldn't? But like, I don't necessarily. That's not my goal. I don't need that. I just need my goal, not to be too inside baseball, but from day one, I've always wanted to just go to any town in America on any given night and sell 100 tickets.
Yeah,
that'd be nice. 100 people in the right size room makes for a wonderful show if they're digging it. Selling 100 tickets is plenty money for me, to make it worth my while. So I'm just trying to get 100 people in every town that, and again, not that I've never been like super alty or original. Like, I'm fairly meat and potatoes as far as my style, but I hope I put a unique enough twist on it that, maybe it attracts, a savvy comedy audience rather than just, we like whatever schmuck was on TikTok, this morning.
Yeah. And I think you get a lot more of that in the South too, because just we as people, like, we know when we're being tricked. Like I mean, I can look at a comedy poster now and see if the guy's funny or not just from what's on the poster. Like, it's not hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, if you have Hulu as a credit, dude, what did you do on Hulu? How is the whole fucking streaming platform your credit?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, there's a lot of stolen valor in regards to comedy credits out there floating around too. Guys that I know, like, you were not on HBO. What the fuck? What were you? And I don't want to say, I've never done this because it seems petty, but like, when I see a poser post their show post or something and it's got credits on there, I'm so bad. Hey, what you do on HBO? I must have missed that.
Yeah.
Oh. Or I knew a guy one time, a headliner. I'm not going to say his name, but he was an extra. He was just background extra, did not have a line on some whatever bullshit show from 15 years ago. Anyway, he was literally an extra, did not have a line, and that was his credit. Yeah. It's like, man, and not that I'm trying to be the credit Nazi here, but like,
Oh, I'll be quick to put that stuff on my acting resume, but I'm not going to put that on a comedy resume at all.
Yeah, how's that going to sell a ticket? Who gives a shit? Oh, we got to go see this guy because he was in the background of Suddenly Susan, whatever the fuck show it was. It was. I know what show it was. I can't even remember, and I won't even say it But anyway, but yeah, there's just a lot of that, and I'm sorry you don't have credits, but you shouldn't fake it, Yeah,
you got to get out there and build the credits.
Because, and again, it's not for me to control it, but it devalues the legit credits out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of that around here too, dude. Like, for whatever reason, there's just so many comics down here who claim to have a Netflix credit or a CBS credit from something. There's this one guy in particular who is just some guy from Orlando who came through here claiming to have been on HBO, True TV, Vice News, all this stuff. And what it was from was he was in the audience of a game show on True TV. He made it on camera in the audience, and that clip got put on Vice News and shown on HBO with him in the audience. And he thinks that's all 3 credits.
I mean, like, when I was coming up in Atlanta, we wouldn't take him out behind the bar and beat him with a broomstick, but we would definitely be like, hey, man, explain that. And then we would just go, you're full of shit. You should probably take that off your poster. Like, we had no problem calling people out on that. And again, not to be super elitist or aggressive about it, but it was just like, what are you doing? That's why I never understood comics that posture and pretend that there's something they're not around other comics. Because it's like, hey, man, we just saw your set. We know you're a poser. Like, you're not fooling us. Like,
but I feel like comedy's the only way, the only, like, place where it's okay to do that. Like, if somebody's being a poser, call them out, because
absolutely. Because you're making us all look like idiots.
Yeah.
I used to teach this in Atlanta. Like, it is so, and you guys probably know this too, it is so hard to get the general public to come to a comedy show where no one's famous on the lineup.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, your average American walking down the street knows 4 or 5 comedians.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love, you know how they do that shit. Speaking of late night, where they do the sidewalk and they're interviewing random people. I'd love to do a survey of that. Just like name your 5 favorite comedians, and most people probably couldn't get to 5. My point is, it's so hard to get people to come to a comedy show where no one's famous. We can't have any of this fuckery. Like, we want them to come back. If they take a chance and come to a local comedy show, whether it be an open mic or a showcase show or whatever, and it's just a bunch of dickheads posturing and posing and not delivering, they're never coming back.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's
like,
what I mean. Like it is so hard to build, to especially in comedy, to like not only just like build yourself up in your own scene, your own hometown, but even just to like, you know, go out of town, like and go to other mics and like get featured somewhere or open up for something. Like, it's so hard to build that up. And then you get to that point and somebody's going to come along and like some fucking TikTok star. It's like, what am I doing? Like, there's just, that angers me. I don't know. I feel like it should be called out because it might be elitist, but yeah, you earned it.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, I was a part of a group in Atlanta that we were out there every night, and we were working hard, and we were trying to develop as comics, and we were trying to build the scene and grow the scene. And when people come in and, you know, just do it half-assed or posery, it's like, dude, you're devaluing all the shit we're trying to do here. Like, take that shit somewhere else. And like, we had a lot of that too. I think it's bizarre to me that there was a lot of comics that pose in terms of like wanting to look cool or seem cool. Like, this is fucking stand-up comedy, dude. If you want to fucking be cool, go start a band. Go join a fucking band. Go fucking try to be an actor. But your little fucking bullshit, I'm a cool guy, but I'm a poser, like, that doesn't work in stand-up comedy, buddy.
Yeah.
Fucking either get better or get the fuck out of here.
I already did those other two too, and I'm not cool there either.
And my point with that is too, that it's not just elitist and you don't belong. It's you're taking a spot. I couldn't get booked on tomorrow night's show because they gave you a fucking spot.
Yeah.
And you're a poser who's not taking it seriously. You know, like, stage time on any level is valuable. It's all relative, but like, you know, I'm trying to build a new hour, but I can't get booked at this club because they're letting some fucking poser have a spot. Like, yeah, that's when it becomes personal. So fuck you.
Tell me how you feel about this, because this happens a lot down here as well. I don't know if it was happening around, you know, when you were on the open mic scene or whatever, but there's so many showcases here now where the producers will book open mic comics who it's like their third ever time doing comedy because they know that they're going to sell 30 tickets or, you know, to their friends and family or whatever.
Yeah. The same thing happened in Atlanta. Atlanta was notorious for that. Laughing Skull Lounge. When they came around, they billed themselves as like the cool alt comedy, and they were for a while. They booked Maria Bamford and Doug Benson and Mark Maron. But now they rarely even have an out-of-town show headliner come through. It's all Best of Atlanta. It's just showcase shows every weekend that they charge like $30 fucking for. Jeez. But also on the open mics, and that's kind of one of the shows I was talking about. Like, when I was in Atlanta trying to, you know, build new hours and build new material, I could barely get a spot on the open mic because all 20 spots were new people that were going to bring friends. And again, I get that it's a business, but also this show, even though it's an open mic, is going to be fucking awful because they didn't stagger the lineup with scene veterans. You know, You got 20 people on an open mic, sure, give 10 of them to brand new people, but how about the other 10 to the people that have been around for months or years, busting their ass, trying to, you know, develop a thing. And I used to bump heads with those idiots there all the time. Like, just 20 spots on the open mic, 20 first-timers. Now, of course, that's an exaggeration. It wasn't like that all the time, but many nights there was 17, 18 first-timers. And it's like, well, this show's just going to be fucking great. I'm glad you made money off of these idiots' friends. So good for you.
Yeah, and that
And
can't be sustained.
No.
Just yeah.
well, not only is no one going to come back to that show, but at the same time, I know producers who are doing this who will book like 3 open mic comics because they can trick them out of not having to pay them
Yeah.
because they don't know any better. They've never been booked before. They don't
Mm-hmm.
know that, hey, if you're booked and you're doing 5 minutes and you're working to sell tickets, you should be fucking paid for that. Like, no, I just did it for the stage time and the exposure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a broad spectrum there, but yeah, in theory, if that show is selling tickets, and granted, an open micer doing 5 minutes, they don't. I'm not saying they need $50, but
No, but
a couple of drink tickets, a crisp $10 bill, something, kind of spread it around.
I didn't just make that up either. Like there's an exact situation in which that's happened that I'm
I'm
referring
sure,
to.
absolutely, yeah.
So what's
But
your one big piece of advice you would give? Because we do have people that listen to this show. I mean, we are the Open Micers podcast. So any up and coming young comedians, like what is your biggest piece of advice you have for them?
I mean, the obvious answer, and it is true, just reps, just get on stage as much as possible. But beyond that, early on, someone who's very early, somebody told me this. Shout out to Drew Thomas. He was one of the big guys when I started in Atlanta. And he told me very early on, shut up and get good. Meaning, don't worry about your fucking website. Don't worry about your business cards. Don't worry about this. Don't. What good is advertising a product if the product isn't very good yet? Shut up and just get good at comedy for a while. Don't worry about it. I know everybody, even a brand new, you got to promote the shows that you're on. I get that. Another piece of advice, don't book a bunch of regional open mics and call it a tour. Again, not trying to be a gatekeeper, but it undermines, it devalues the comics who are legitimately touring.
Yeah.
I'm legitimately touring. I'm going out to cities. I'm doing an hour every night. Good for you for doing your open mics and your guest spots. But I'm sorry, it ain't a tour. You're not a touring comic yet.
Mm-hmm.
You can be, but these are shows I'm looking at on your website. This ain't a tour. So stop fronting, stop posing, and just, it's just have some humility. Just the lack, and I know I sound like the cranky old man, but this was this way even when I started, and I'm sure it's worse now, but just the me, look at me, I'm a star. You're a star? You're fucking terrible, bro. We all watched your set. That doesn't mean you won't be a star one day, but you ain't a star today, and you got to fucking accept that and just work and get better and leave all that other bullshit alone, if you want to be a good comic. Some people don't care about being a good, respected comic. They just want to be famous on any level, TikTok, whatever. And those are the people I have a hard time hanging out with, in the green room. If you're just trying to be famous, fuck off, get away from me. Like that's not what we're here to do. We're here to get good at comedy and put on good comedy shows. And I don't know, I'm ranting, but yeah, advice to young comics: do some reps and just don't worry about self-promotion until there's something really worth promoting.
that's some excellent advice, Dave Stone. With that being said, I think we're going to wrap up the podcast on that note. Please tell everyone where they can see you on this Southern tour. I know you're hitting Mobile, Pensacola, Lafayette, I believe. Where can everybody see you?
Yeah, all the dates are up now at dumbdavestone.com. But in August, I'm doing, I think in order, I'm doing Wilmington, Columbia, South Carolina, Charleston, Savannah, Jacksonville, Tampa, Tallahassee, Panama City, Pensacola, Mobile. So yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, that's August.
I may not be opening for you on that Mobile show, so
cool.
Don't be surprised if you see me there.
Right on. Yeah, I heard that's a good venue. I'm excited. That's the Alabama Music Box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I opened for Mick Foley there, dude. And when it's full, it's a fucking. You cannot miss in that show, dude.
Cool. So yeah, hopefully we can fill it up some.
You're on Saturday, August 26th at the Vinyl Music Hall in Pensacola, which is an excellent venue. Did some stuff there before. And you're also at the Alabama Music Box on Sunday, August 27th. So go get your tickets at dumbdavestone.com. The Mobile tickets are $15 advance tickets and $20 at the door. So go get your tickets right now.
I have a question for you guys real quick.
Okay.
You guys are in Biloxi?
Yes.
Yes.
But you also do stuff in Mobile and all that area?
Yeah.
If I'm rolling through, let's say I'm going from Pensacola to Mobile, I'm a big food guy. Where am I getting lunch? What's the best?
Okay. If
you can't go wrong with the Buc-ee's.
But,
well, if you're in Pensacola, go eat at McGuire's. That is the place. Yeah, go to McGuire's. There's a little bit of a wait to get in, but it's totally worth the wait to get in. It's the best place you're gonna eat. Mobile, I don't really know. Maybe a street hot dog.
Okay, yeah.
Dude, the street hot dogs are fucking legit, dude. Especially if you have a few drinks in you.
Holy shit, they're wrapped in bacon. Look at that. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, they have them like that. They actually do. They're so good.
I love that. Like, who's going to turn that down? Of course, yes. It's hot dog wrapped in bacon.
Yeah.
You know?
That sounds
We have a lot of that around here where, like, such, like, makeshift DIY, like, just some little old lady literally with a shopping cart turned upside down and, like, a sterno can underneath and with a fucking griddle grilling up bacon-wrapped hot dogs with peppers and onions. And yeah, sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good. But yeah, don't get me started on street food. Like out here, everybody loves tacos. Tacos. Yeah, tacos are great, but the individual components within still have to be good.
Yeah.
You know, you get credit for just making a taco. Like all the stuff kind of needs to be, you know, well done and good.
Yeah, I'm telling you, in Pensacola, go to McGuire's, dude. Their hamburgers are the size of your head. Like, they're so freaking huge. I mean, you can get anything there you want. Like, they got po' boys. They got Irish-type food. You know, they got, like, shepherd's pie. But I always get a hamburger when I'm there. And it's, like, the size of a couch pillow.
It tastes like shit, but it's really big.
No.
Speaking of good burgers, the Blind Mule is a bar in Mobile. They used to do comedy there.
Yeah, I did shows there, yeah.
Yeah, dude, their burgers are fantastic if you've never had a burger there.
Okay. But no, like little roadside catfish shacks or.
You'd have to come further this way to the Mississippi area for anything like that, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I'm always on the prowl. You know, the shows are usually secondary to my food adventures when I go on tour. So.
Yeah, if you're swinging through, I actually live in Ocean Springs, which is right next to Biloxi. If you're swinging through Ocean Springs, you could come by Pleasant's Used Tires and Barbecue.
Okay,
get you some good used tires and some barbecue while you're there.
There we go. I like that. Used tires and barbecue. That's like that old James Gregory joke. I don't know. You know James Gregory, old Southern road dog.
Oh yeah.
He just had a joke about drove past a business at lawnmower repair and income tax service. Now, how the hell did they come up with that? Well, you know, Frank, you did a hell of a job on my lawnmower. I think I'll let you do my taxes.
That sounds like where Jacob lives up in Van Cleve.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, I have a guy who does small engine repair just out of his house and clears like freaking $1,000 a week.
Hell yeah, man. Redneck ingenuity, man. It's, you know, like I said before, I make fun of the South, but yeah, some of the smartest motherfuckers I've ever met are just dumb old rednecks that can fix anything, you know, engineer shit. Like that redneck ingenuity is a real thing, man. I respect it.
I'll tell you what, if I get the green light to open for you in Mobile, we'll talk a lot of shop about food places in the green room.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. That sounds good.
Well, Dave, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Tell everybody where they can find you at on the interwebs.
Yeah, again, Dumb Dave Stone's got all my tour dates. I got a new Patreon. I'm a big food guy. I like to cook. Now the Boogie Monster's on hiatus, I'm focusing on Dave's Kitchen Patreon. I do videos and I also do podcasts. I do like instructional recipe videos, but then I also do just food related podcasts where I sit down with a comic or a chef or somebody and talk about food. But yeah, that's at patreon.com/Dave's Kitchen, dumbdavestone.com for the tour dates. Dave Stone Comedy on all the social media stuff, and then the Stonebergs every Wednesday. That's with me and my wife, Katie Strandberg. It's kind of adventures in human behavior, a little therapy stuff, a little self help, a little neurodivergent, just trying to figure out how our brains work. But yeah, we're having fun with that. And Katie will be with me on that tour. She'll be doing some guest spots on all the shows. So she'll be at
nice.
Mobile and Pensacola and all that. So a lot of times when I do shows, we don't have a huge listener base, but we have a small but loyal fan base who listen to Stonebergs. And every show I go, "Where's Katie? Yeah, you were fine. We're here to see Katie. Where's Katie? How's Katie?" So I got tired of answering all those questions, so I'm just bringing her with me. So
That's awesome.
What about you, Jacob? You got anything? You got anything in the pipe you want to throw out there before we go?
Officially booked right now, October 6th in Mobile at the Alabama Music Box, I'm pretty sure. Stone versus Drunk versus Sober. I'm going to be on Team Drunk. And as always, dude, look at our calendar on our website and look at those guest names and tell me you're not excited for the future. Open Micers is killing it right now, dude. We've got
that could also be the name of my show at the Music Box: Stone versus Drunk versus Sober. We could make that happen too. That could be fun.
Yeah, dude, let's get teams Dave Stone going.
Hell yeah, that's a good idea.
So,
yeah, it would be Stone versus Sober. I would be on the drunk and stoned part. So,
hell yeah.
Dave versus Sober is really all that show would be.
But yeah, we've got tons of guests coming up on the pod. We've got Ian Bagg towards the end of the month, Jake from the Joke World YouTube channel, and we've got even more hits coming in August. So now's a great time to get in our Patreon to get all that extra content. Go check out our website for regular blog posts. Those have been killing it lately, and we love you guys.
Fantastic. Well, if you want to email us at openmicerspodcast@gmail.com. We're at openmicers.com. You can go to our Linktree /openmicerspodcast. It takes you everywhere you need to go. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at openmicers, at jpunktastic, at Jacob C. Craig, and at Jacob Craig Comedy. Our Patreon is patreon.com/ompodcast. And of course, brezcoffeeco.com. Use the code OMPodcast for 10% off your order. And we'll see you next week. All right, and that was the episode. So thank you guys for watching on YouTube.